Coming up on Need to Know, a hard-fought wage increase battle saw some success this year, but workers who help those living with disabilities say they are still in need of support. What a profession that some call underpaid and undervalued is looking for in an effort to help our most vulnerable and those trained to care for them. That's next. Also on the show, a revolution in inclusion. We're checking out a local group on a mission to get businesses and organizations equipped to offer recreational activities to people of all abilities. Stay with us. A special Move to Include edition of Need to Know starts right now. A living wage. That's what a coalition of advocates and community agencies that support individuals with disabilities have been calling for in our state. The focus of that fight, the more than 120,000 New Yorkers who work with and care for individuals with disabilities. They're called direct support professionals, and they're in chronic short supply. That's according to the New York State chapter of the ARC. While the governor allocated $55 million in the budget this year to support a wage increase for these professionals working with nonprofits, is that enough to recruit, train, and sustain employees? Joining me to answer that question and provide a picture of the critical nature of this profession is Val Largent, direct support professional with the ARC of Monroe, and Wendy McCarthy, association manager for the Developmental Disabilities Alliance of Western New York. Welcome to both of you. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
So just to begin, I want to ensure that people tuning into this program right now, that they have a solid understanding of what direct support professionals do, like the nitty-gritty, what this job involves. And Val, would you break that down so people have a full picture understanding?
On a day-to-day basis, we provide support to people that have disabilities. We offer activities to them. We assist them with social skills and hygiene and recreation. It's just so much that we do during the course of a day, and it's only usually there are 8 hours, but in those 8 hours, you've done at least 12 hours worth of work.
And I want to know, and I'd like for both of you to kind of give your input on this, what do you think the care system would look like for individuals with disabilities and their families if this profession did not exist?
I think it'd be very challenging for them. I think I work in a day hab. I think when our individuals that come in receive the support that they receive from us, it allows the families to take a breath and maybe assist other family members that they may need to take care of besides the ones, that have the disabilities and stuff. So I think it provides relief for them. Also support for them. They can come to day hab and they have other services that they receive at the day hab services. So.
The aim of direct support professional and working with people with developmental disabilities can vary, and I know that Val talked a little bit about that. So you'll see direct support professionals assisting people in the community, shopping, at church, and also at home if they're living with family members, at work and at school. So it's a really broad scope, but the aim is to assist people to live more meaningful lives.
It's interesting, this past spring I read a New York Daily News article. It was called Revisiting the Atrocities, and this article was in relation to Willowbrook State School in Staten Island. This was a horrific facility. It made national news, and it was a state-run center for kids and adults, for people watching who are unfamiliar with this. And it made national news and led to legislation because of the horrific nature and the inhumane treatment for those living there. And I want to know, changes were made after Willowbrook. How haven't our direct support professionals played a role in this transition from living in a facility where they are directly depending on people, or a lack thereof, in the nature of Willowbrook, to more community type settings or even independent living? How do direct support professionals assist with that?
Our program, one of the programs that I am, we we do a lot of volunteer-based work. So we go to Goodwill, and we're at FoodLink, and we're at other places, the public market, working on their gardens. We do lots of inclusion, whereas before there wasn't as much inclusion. And I think it's very important for the people that we service to be included in those activities. And I think that moving forward, that change has helped assist with training DSP staff to understand that you don't take a person's disability, you take their abilities and give them a chance to grow.
Yeah, and I would add to that, you know, over the last 40 or 50 years, we've moved away from institutionalization, yep. More community involvement, as Val said. That work used to be done by the state, and more it's being done by nonprofit organizations. The real issue is that those nonprofit organizations receive almost 90% of their funding from Medicaid. So there's a state portion and a federal portion. And they don't have the ability to raise fees as the demand for higher salaries in those positions go up. But, you know, our goal with the Be Fair to Direct Care campaign is to raise awareness about the need for a living wage, a fair wage for these very, you know, important positions that are supporting individuals and families with developmental disabilities.
And I want to get into that campaign. And first, I've read that the average salary of direct support professionals is between $21,000 and $22,000 in New York. Is that approximately accurate, would you say?
I would say so, yeah.
So the New York Association of Community and Residential Agencies came out with a report called Direct Support Professionals, the Front Line of Change. Very interesting report. They spoke with DSPs throughout New York to hear about their experiences. Many working second jobs, many working 60 to 80 hours a week to survive. And you mentioned this a little bit. I want to dig into this a little bit more. Why is this happening? We have this position being called critical and important for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and for their families. How is it that they're not able to make a living wage in our state?
Mm-hmm. You know, I think that the agencies that are helping people to get those services desperately want to be able to offer living wages, to offer something more than the $20,000. But again, without an increase in that Medicaid rate, it's tough to do, and agencies don't want to turn people away from services. So it's just a multitude of factors. There's also a really high turnover rate in this type of position, which adds to the cost. We hate to see someone who's doing a great job working as a DSP, they know the individual or the family they're working with well, and then they leave to take a position that pays 50 cents more an hour. That's a real tragedy for the family and the individual.
I want to talk about this a little bit more in terms of the repercussions of low salaries for direct support professionals. You mentioned they'll have to leave and take a job in which they might make 50 cents more. Some work, you know, other jobs 60 to 80 hours a week. How does this high turnover, how does it impact not just DSPs but also individuals with disabilities and their families?
I think it hurts them. They need consistency. I mean, people like consistency in their life, and I think they deserve consistency. That's the main thing, I think. I think the people that are being hurt are the people that we're servicing, and they shouldn't have to, because their preferred staff or staff that's consistent, has been there for them, has to leave to go to a job that they may not even want to do. So, yeah, I think it's the people we support that suffer the most.
My colleague Karen Shakurji covered the Be Fair to Direct Care campaign, which we'll talk about in just a moment, and she spoke with the family who said, you know, we don't know who may come next week to support our child because they see different faces, and you mentioned the word consistency, and that's exactly what they said. They said that's key. They want to know that they have someone, and this is about longevity, that will continue to be there, although they understood the reason that they may need to leave to take something to support themselves or to support their families. This Be Fair to Direct Care campaign, for viewers, they're tuning in and they're unaware of what this means. This is about helping direct support professionals receive a living wage. Both of your respective organizations are involved in this effort, and I understand that this year's state budget, as I mentioned, was considered a win. So the governor allocated, he was aware of this campaign, allocated $55 million in the state budget to support DSPs. So then my question is $55 million enough, or is this, are you just getting started?
We're just getting started. Yeah. This was part of a 6-year plan that we have to raise the salaries of DSPs across the state to a living wage. The $55 million was the first phase of this. And so Be Fair to Direct Care is just getting started, really. We're going to ask everyone who sees your show, who has a family member with a developmental disability, works in the field, or cares about this issue to join in our movement to keep Be Fair on the radar. Reach out to your elected officials, let them know that this is an important issue. I'd be shocked if there's anybody out there who is not familiar with this issue that's working in the field, because it's a critical situation right now.
I want to ask you, Val, you talked about like what a benefit and how families benefit from what you do, but you also mentioned that DSPs, they don't want to take another job because they love what they're doing. What is it about your position that you enjoy so much?
It is being able to watch people grow. Going from being able to wipe half of a table to being able to wipe the entire table by themselves. I mean, it's just an amazing feeling. I get bubbly and just warm. I always talk about my job and the excitement. I recommend people to be DSPs. It is just a wonderful experience. I feel privileged to work with them.
In addition to, we mentioned the low wages that is part of this Be Fair to Direct Care. What are other challenges associated with this job that maybe in the news have gone under the radar just a bit, but that both of you want people to be aware of?
I think it's just, I don't think that people are really, I'm not sure how to say this. I don't think people really understand the impact that a DSP worker has and the responsibilities that they have. You are responsible for your human life. If you're not doing your job effectively, the outcome could be terrible. I mean, I think people, if you have a loved one, or if you don't know a person with disability, get to know one. You will find out that the love that they have, the passion that they have, is the same as anyone else. They want the same things that we want. They want happiness, and I think the challenges come in when, again, no consistency with their service coordinator, or no consistency with their staff, their van drivers. I mean, anyone that has contacted them. When they lose that, we see a change in their behaviors. When you are a DSP, you know your people, you're supposed to know your people, and we see that it hurts them. And I think that that's the things that people don't see, is the impact that it has on the people that we service.
And your position is a highly trained position too. I mean, you go through an extensive amount of training to be able to do exactly what you do.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're always being trained.
So Wendy, if changes are not made in the near future when it comes to the healthcare field, and I'm talking particularly the care of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and people like Val who are supporting them and working with them, what does that mean for them as they age? Because I've read about families who are concerned as parents get older, they have some real concerns as to what will happen to their young person.
Right. Well, what we've found in the last several years is that there's a movement to help people in their homes as opposed to moving to a group home setting. So I think that we need to have more resources devoted toward that, more respite opportunities, more day have opportunities, so that folks are not isolated in their homes. They have an opportunity to go out into the community.
Well, you talked a little bit about this. People are watching, and many of the people watching right now, they may have family members with intellectual or developmental disabilities receiving support from direct care professionals. After listening to this discussion, you said reach out to your elected officials. What else would you suggest they do to get involved in this Be Fair to Direct Care campaign?
Well, they can visit. We have a Facebook page. It is the letter B.
And I've got this, yep.
Okay, Fair to Direct Care. Just put that in your search for Facebook, and it'll come up. Like our page. Same thing with Twitter. Like it, follow it, retweet it. We need to spread the word.
Well, we have to close for now. So to my guests, I really appreciate both of you being here and for weighing in on this issue. And you can learn more about the work of direct support professionals and also the continued advocacy of the Be Fair to Direct Care campaign. So just go to, as Wendy was saying, facebook.com/BeFairToDirectCare. And I should note September 10th through the 16th is Direct Support Professional Recognition Week. So learn how to get involved in the celebration of this profession at nationaladvocacycampaign.org. When a member of your family is in a wheelchair, you may not think taking off on a kayaking adventure together on the Erie Canal is possible, but it is. And we got to join in on the experience with an area mother and son sharing this special moment together for the first time. It happened earlier this week when we joined an adaptive kayaking event led by Rochester Accessible Adventures. Take a look.
Watch his foot, outside foot.
Today is a first for Jeffrey Lane. Don't be mistaken, the adventure seeker has had his share of kayaking over the years. But today, he's in for a new experience. His mom is joining him for the first time.
And then it'll be side to side, and you can watch what he does and do the same thing.
And Jeffrey says she's nervous.
Nice squeeze. So you're going to paddle on your left side.
I had to convince her quite a bit to come and do it. Just told her that it's not as bad as she thought, and that if I can do it, then she can do it.
In addition to being a little apprehensive about getting out on the water, his mom says she's also a little emotional.
Jeff is my best friend. He's been my best friend for forever, and I couldn't think of a better person to spend any time with. I'm sorry, I'm going to get emotional. It's something that he has done before when he was younger, but we've never been able to do it together.
You don't want to run into anybody.
The mother and son duo are joining other area families and friends participating together in this adaptive kayaking experience. Participating together being the key words.
Because of this man here in Fairport that has set up this place where handicapped people and able-bodied people can go and do things together. It's just amazing.
Tonight's event is being offered through Rochester Accessible Adventures in partnership with the Erie Canal Boat Company and other community partners.
If you'll just sign the two of you in.
RAA's mission is to ensure individuals with disabilities can access active and inclusive sports activities with family and friends.
I love the water, so any chance I can get out into the water is something I'm going to take.
A picture-perfect summer evening, 70-degree weather, and mother and son kayaking together for the first time. These are the things memories are made of. Joining me in the studio to discuss what she's referred to as a revolution in inclusion when it comes to eliminating barriers to active lifestyles for individuals with disabilities and their families is Anita O'Brien, Executive Director of Rochester Accessible Adventures, and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So Anita, I noticed a theme while observing the different participants earlier this week participating in the Adaptive Kayaking Clinic, and I'm curious if this is something that you hear more often than not, and that is, we're doing this together for the first time. We got to see that in the video piece with Jeffrey and his mother, Lori, and I want to know, how often do you hear that through clinics such as we saw this week and other community events?
A lot, and I'm grateful for you spending that time with us on the canal to see that, because that is what's happening. As people are able to find these outlets that are becoming trained in recreation for and with people with disabilities, the experiences are amazing. And just yesterday we actually had a couple come up with their children from New York City, knowing that they could go to Erie Canal Boat Company to kayak for the first time together as well with their children. And it's something that needs to happen. It's time for it to happen, and we're just happy to be a part of that.
Yeah. You said it's something that needs to happen and time for it to happen. And I want to know, when you, what does it tell you about the state of recreation? I'm talking about people of all abilities to be able to participate in things like this together. What does that tell you when you hear so many people coming together saying, we haven't done this before?
Right. And sadly, people haven't been able to do that before, and recreation is such a part of what we do as family that to give them that opportunity finally to just go do these things, whether it's kayaking or cycling or playing pickleball with your family. It's crucially important that they're able to do that as that family unit, as our core relationships, rather than separating the person with the disability and maybe one parent going to a particular program and the other sitting on the sideline. It really is important that they're able to do these together. It's very formative. Like you said in the intro, it creates those memories, and those memories are pretty powerful for a lifelong active engagement in recreation, and that's what we want. We want that access to wellness for the lifetime, that access to the social, the physical, emotional benefits that recreation brings. And until we create a community that is able to include people with disabilities, that can't happen. So that's what we're after.
Let's talk a little bit about your backstory, because for 17 years you've been involved in recreation for individuals with disabilities in Rochester region. How did you get involved in this work?
So this has evolved out of working with the families. And so I would provide programs for individuals with disabilities, and we would have some amazing experiences. They would come back rejuvenated, hopeful, feeling that, okay, this is possible for me to do it. And then I would get the question, so when can I do it again? Or if the person couldn't do it on the Monday nights when I had the program set up, they would say, well, can I come and take one of these cycles out or get this kayaking equipment on a Thursday? And I'd say, I'm sorry, I don't have that. So for me to be able now to say yes, to have them be able to access it whenever the businesses are open, which in this case is 7 days a week for Erie Canal Boat Company, that's a pretty powerful system to be working with. And so this grew naturally out of that I was looking for ways to truly say yes more than I was having to say no.
Right. So talk to me a little bit about the model that Rochester Accessible Adventures offers. And also a little bit, I know you touched upon this, why have we not seen this model before? What has prevented something like this from being developed?
Right, so the model is multi-layered, and I feel that that's extremely important that we approach it that way. We're talking about systemic change in a community, and you need to be able to provide the adaptive equipment, the knowledge of how to use the adaptive equipment, so that the providers of whatever it is are very confident in including people that are going to use that equipment. And that's a crucial piece. People won't come until they know the right equipment is there and that they know that it can be used properly and safely. Another part is that business people may not know individuals with disabilities, and they may not know about specific disabilities and how it might impact a person accessing their particular opportunity. And so we also provide that level of training behind the scenes to a business provider so that they can feel confident if someone tells them, hey, I have a spinal cord injury, or I have Parkinson's disease, or whatever it is, that's fine. That's not a scary thing. It's something that they know they have resources to learn more about, so they can see how that impacts what they're providing. And then a third layer is the outreach. A big part of what RAA does is connecting then the people in the community, people with disabilities, to these new opportunities, and also to providers that work with individuals with disabilities. So those are the three levels that our model works on. And it's very comprehensive networking and training, so that within a community, there's a network, there's a solid connection of people being able to access it. It's typically been word of mouth for people to find out about things, and it needs to move faster than that at this point. And so that part of what we're doing is important.
And how do we do that? How do we make it move faster?
So on my part of things, it's having more inclusion specialists based throughout Monroe County and then throughout the geographic regions around our area to spread it. And those individuals that would be trained in this model that can then create those connections within the community, do those in-service trainings, do these kinds of clinics that we saw in the film there, so that we bring people to the places and introduce them to it.
And level 2, you said, was this really training businesses and getting that business buy-in. Has that been difficult? I know we got to see the Erie Canal Boat Company and Full Force and what they have available in terms of adaptive equipment. Right. But has it been difficult to get buy-in with businesses who may think or may previously have thought, we can't do this, we don't know how to do this?
Right. gratefully, now I think there is a shift on a community level that people are more willing to embrace this. Mine is a pretty easy selling point because I can show them definitively that if they will buy into this, that the return on their investment is in numbers, that there are tangible numbers that are showing that their business will increase. If they are providing it in this manner that we're training them, then people will know they can come and participate. And so the numbers at Erie Canal Boat Company have been fantastic. And as we approach new businesses about it, I think they're more welcoming of the idea that, yeah, we really don't see people with disabilities coming here. And the fact is, you asked about barriers earlier, sometimes it's just not knowing what they don't know yet. And they relish the idea of having someone walk them through it, and we don't leave them after they're trained. We stay with them and complete the relationship, continue the relationship by bringing people to their business and doing that outreach with them. And that's an important piece that they need to know is it's not, you know, the ADA is a pretty comprehensive manual. It's all black and white, and it doesn't really help teach that more untangible part of the social dynamic, the culture dynamic. And that's a piece that I think would bring the two together, and they can, we've shown that it is possible to take off with that. So we actually have a working list of entities that we're starting to continue this model with as we spread it. We're beginning to train Victor Recreation Center. We're working with the City of Rochester, our centers, and then we have a number other of dialogues
So
happening.
the plan then is this is not just a Rochester regional thing, this is countywide, then you want to take this statewide as well.
Right.
And I want to kind of go back to something you mentioned. You got a phone call before we close from a family in New York City. They learned about Rochester Accessible Adventures through a magazine, and you told me, like, I got this call and they said, we didn't know that we could do this. Were they heading to Niagara Falls?
Right.
And how do you get calls like that? I mean, because of the fact that this is something new that they're getting to see and experience?
Yes, and we're getting the calls and they're saying, can you accommodate me? And it's fun because we can. The answer is yes now, and it's getting that word out to people that they can come do this, and it's very exciting. It's very exciting.
We are out of time for now, but a special thank you to Anita O'Brien of Rochester Accessible Adventures. And you heard Anita, she is eager to help family and friends experience adaptive and inclusive activities, some for the very first time. So learn more. They got a fall campaign coming out. Reach out to Anita and her team online at rochesteraccessibleadventures.org. And that wraps up this special Move to Include edition of Need to Know. Move to Include is a partnership between WXXI and the Golisano Foundation. Its mission is to encourage thoughtful discussion about issues of inclusion and the differently abled. To learn more, go to movetoinclude.org. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Helen Bianduti Hofer, and I'll see you next week right here on WXXI TV.